Good morning to you. Happy Sunday. I almost said happy Saturday. What's getting up with me here? Maybe I am getting old. And in fact, that's what I want to talk about today. Old school, baby. Old school. When I was growing up and I was a young man back in the late 70s and early 80s, I used to listen to the good old big hair bands, and one was Bon Jovi, and he wrote a song called Just Older. And one of my favorite lyrics was, like an old pair of torn blue jeans, the skin I'm in is all right with me. They're not old, just older. That's what I like to think of myself, and I also like to think of that as training methods. Because today, as you already know, if you own a dog, again, I've said this before, if you own a dog or you're going to get a dog and you're researching how best to train your dog, I wish you a lot of luck. There are so many conflicting methodologies, ways to train a dog. There's people throwing out these huge words and scientific studies, and I talked about one yesterday. It's enough to drive you crazy and enough to, unfortunately, paralyze you. Get to a point where you just don't even know what to do, who to trust, and how to carry on. And anytime you ever come in that situation, regardless of what it is in life, pause for a second. Remember, in survival, we always pause. We just take a breath. Sit down on the ground if you need to. And just relax. Do the best you can. Because your brain will work it out. I promise you. Always work it out. You just got to give yourself some time to think and kind of go by your instinct. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about that because a lot of the training methods that I use are old school. I've definitely been accused of that. People like to come around and use all this stuff like marking systems and this and that and that and this. And I don't change. I don't watch other trainers' videos. I don't read other trainers' books. I don't read other trainers' published works. I just don't. Why? Because I don't need to. And I sometimes just want to kind of warn you about today. Just because it's new doesn't necessarily mean it's improved. And here's why, especially when it comes to a lot of dog training methods. Because when they were first created back in the day, 50 plus years ago, when dogs were suddenly, well, I wouldn't say slowly, but really slowly. Let me use a completely opposite approach here. In a real slow fashion, dogs went from being dogs, being animals that we actually use to herd livestock, to guard property, hunting dogs. I had dogs in Alaska that pulled my sleds. They were dogs. I'm from a feel generation, not a technologically savvy generation. From a feel generation. And when I owned my sled dogs, they were dogs. And everyone around me and everyone I grew up with and everyone I knew as a very, very young man in my life, they were the same way. They knew the dog. They paid more attention to the animal that resided in their dogs. They didn't look at the dog as a little person in a fur coat. They never even thought that way. I never gave that a thought, not for a second. They weren't pets per se. These were animals who lived with us the way it was done from the very beginning, coexisting together. I'll do something for you, you do something for me. Direct reciprocity, indirect reciprocity. We were acting in accordance with nature. And because of that, the methods used to train dogs, the ones I've shown on these videos, step right, pull right, because why? The dog's a horizontal animal. Let one pull a sled. Let one pull you on your sled, a total of about 800 pounds, fully loaded down with gear to last a week. Let a couple of these sled dogs yank that thing at about 20 miles per hour, straight up about a 40-degree incline, and you'll get a feel for the capability of an animal to move horizontally across the ground. So if you want to combat that, if you actually want to walk that animal somewhere and not be pulled by that animal like you're a sled, then you kind of had to learn a few things. But you first started learning it by observing an animal, a dog. Again, not trying to make it into a surrogate child or a companion that you can't fulfill with the human ability, human needs. So that being said, I learned a lot of things. I learned step right, pull right from sled dogs. I also learned the pulling method and getting them to lie down. Yeah, you take a willful sled dog, and they're extremely willful, and you want to make them lie down, I tell you what, you might as well just step into something out of WWE. It's going to be a smackdown moment there. I'm telling you what, they are going to tell you, excuse me, Bryan, I love you to death, but I tell you what, You try and make me lie down, and I'm going to take your leg off. Yeah, they were tough animals. And place, what did place look like? Here, I got a picture I just want to show you real quick. This is what place looked like. When I first came up with the concept of anything like place, it looked like this. See that? Make sure you guys can see it. I'll stand it back. See how that dog's up on top of his house? You bet. That was place. And I didn't use the word place back then. That's kind of like a new word, so I'll just kind of throw it out there and helps people understand it. But as a child, before I even went to school in the morning, long before I went to school, I had to get outside, and I don't care how cold it was. It could be 40 below zero. It didn't matter. I had a responsibility to those dogs. And I'd find myself out. It's pitch black dark. Heck, it was most of the day like that in Alaska. In the wintertime, it was pitch black dark. And I'm out there with flashlights, and we didn't have pooper scoopers. No, you shoveled that off. You chipped that off with a spade. Yeah, you didn't get to use pooper scoopers and doggy bags. No, it just came one big brown pile, and then the one big brown pile was finally made to go away and kind of being used as fertilizer back then. That was the thinking back then. Okay, but regardless, these dogs would go crazy when they would see me because they knew that when I finished cleaning, it was time to eat. And it wasn't time to eat a second before I was finished cleaning. So therefore, instead of jumping on me and just carrying on like a bunch of wild banshees, I would tell them, on top of your roof, up on your roof. And they'd hop up on top of the roof of their little dog houses. And that's where they were made to stay until I could finally scrape up any waste that was out there. I could change their water, break up that ice, give them some water, it's actual water, not ice, and then pour their food into their bowls. And then when I had all of that finished, then I released them, and they were able to hop down and do that. I learned about off. I learned that when a sled dog is already outweighs you by about 20 pounds and is jumping on you like a caged tornado, I learned that the other end of that spade, the one that had the handle, was great for off. Yeah, off. Absolutely. So again, I've shown videos where I use a broom to create off for people who can't use their hands because the dog overwhelms them physically. I've shown how to use a broom to create weight at a door, weight before you get out of the car. All these things, guys, were born from a generation in which you trained an animal. You trained a dog. It wasn't a little person. It wasn't a kid. By no means. And these methods still work today. Some things just don't need to be improved upon. The animal has not evolved. The dog has not evolved in 50 years to a point that it now requires a completely different approach to training. It hasn't. And therefore, some of the things I want you to be a little wary of is, don't be fooled by big words. Scientific studies that can easily be picked apart with ease. Most of them can be. There's not enough evidence out there because there's just not enough change. So you're searching for fool's gold, and good luck if you can find it because it just hasn't been enough time. So be careful that when you're researching how best to train your dog, don't be so easily swayed by big words and by fancy techniques and fancy videos that are put out there that have all this publication stuff around, all this production and everything. There's a time and a place for that. I get it. But for the most part, don't be so easily swayed by that. And when it comes to picking a training facility or a trainer to help you with your dog, let me kind of give you another piece of advice. Anyone can give you a curriculum vitae that's about a mile long and say, I've got all these credentials and I got all these acronyms behind my name. Why? I don't put any behind my name. I don't place any value in it. I just don't. You can, but I don't. But I'm going to tell you this much. The qualifications that a trainer has is that trainer's results. Their results are their qualifications. And that's the way it goes with any occupation, any professional that you seek help with. What results did you get? What results? And how long have you been able to obtain those results? Are you consistent? Are you a flash in the pan? Pay attention to that. That's the qualifications. And at the end of the day, always rely on your instincts. That's what they were putting you for. Again, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. It is. There's not no if, ands, or maybe. It is. Humans have not degraded in their cognitive abilities. I don't know where we're headed with this technology. I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing or if it's just a middle of the road thing. I haven't been dealing with technology long enough for me to be able to figure that out yet. Some people have opinions on it. I just don't. I just kind of go with the flow. I'm struggling right now just to get audio to work on a darn iPhone so I can shoot these videos and you guys can hear me a little bit better. And I'm struggling with that. So again, I don't know about technology, but I will tell you this much. I do know about human instinct that's been here a lot longer than technology. And it was put in you so that you could survive on this planet without technology, without big words, so that you can figure out on your own what can hurt you, what can hurt those around you that you care about, what can provide you with life-sustaining energy, what will not. It was given to you in the form of cause and effect. It is given to you in the form of life as the master teacher. She will always be there to teach you always. It was there to warn you so you don't make big mistakes, so you only make the little mistakes. It's there. And if we heed it, then we'll be a lot better off, especially when it comes to raising our dogs and our actual human children, and also interacting with other human beings. So guys, I am old school and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. Because again, everything that I know, yes, I do stay up with current science. You know that. I've done videos on it. I have to because of canine pharmacotherapy. Medications change, drugs change constantly. Their interaction with biological masses change constantly. Animals are changing. They're turning over rapidly because of their lifespan from a observable standpoint. But from an internal mechanisms, their instinct, the things that truly are the foundation of all their behaviors, the things that they would do if we weren't here. If you weren't there to make those behaviors, put them in check, to try and deactivate them, try and modify them to fit your needs. If you just let your darn dog be a dog around other dogs or simply be a dog by itself out in the wild, what would it do? How could it possibly survive? And there's so many stray dogs that do that for years. For years. How do they do it? Yeah, see, they don't have to have you. They'll figure it out. Just give them a little chance and they'll figure it out. And that's because they already had an instruction manual put in them. And it's a very, very old manual. And it's not, if you're watching this video, it's not going to change in your lifetime. It'll still be the same. So again, like a favorite pair of old torn blue jeans, I'm all right with the skin that I'm in. Yeah, not old, just older. I tell you what, I come from that field generation. I'm old school. Thank you. Yes, please, and excuse me are still part of my vocabulary. They still are. And a lot of training techniques that are used to train dogs back in those days, dogs that they had to depend upon for protecting their property, for helping to control livestock when there wasn't enough help around, to hunt for food, to feed their family. Absolutely. Absolutely. The training techniques used to do that and then morph that into someone that you can actually, an animal that you can bring into your home and use control, relied upon those techniques. And that's why I'm just not so quick to change. And I encourage you to definitely explore that and think about that before you just jump on the latest fad, the shiniest and fastest train moving down the track. Sometimes that good old coal locomotive, baby, the iron horse, she just keeps on rolling. Okay, guys, so don't be so vulnerable to new trimmers from old earthquakes. No, just pay attention to the old earthquake. Ignore the trimmers. Okay, they're just new and they just want to kind of get in your grill there and make you think about something other than what you should be thinking about. So again, old school guys, I love it. It's a kind of old kennel dog here. A lot of his stuff here, he was trained old school. Absolutely. And I definitely encourage you. Off. There you go. See? Works like a champ. I encourage you to think about old school before you just start, again, diving into new school type approaches there. Sometimes you just don't need to work on it, don't need to change it. Still works. Therefore, stick with it. Keep it simple, stupid rule. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Tomorrow we'll move on to, I've got some questions I need to answer, and I'm going to be answering those over the next couple of days. And then I'm going to move into my next mini-series on canine nutrition. Answer some more questions right after that. Then I'm going to move into my final mini-series, canine pharmacotherapy. And then that's it. I'm soon down to be into the teens on the remaining videos that are left. It's moving right along. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Think old school. It's not bad. You don't have to be new and shiny. Old works.